Micah frackin' Parsons. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Pinch me. I am dreaming. Actually, no. Let me keep dreaming because it's the greatest dream I've ever had. Grossi. And today we are going to be talking about the impact that Micah Parsons makes being on the Green Bay Packers, looking ahead for this season, looking ahead and in future years as well. We're going to take a look at his contract, what this does for the potential defense. We'll talk about the run defense. We'll talk about having a major Jordan Love contract and Micah Parsons contract, and of course, expectations for this upcoming year and beyond. And so let's just get started because it has been a whirlwind of a few days. And of course, this Micah Parsons story has been going on for quite some time. There were stories about this last year where Micah Parsons could have been re-signed by the Cowboys. Obviously, there was an impending contract date that was coming up. He's in a contract year right now. And ultimately, the deal did not get done by the Dallas Cowboys. And for me, I'm still in a bit of shock that the Cowboys even did this trade. Not only because of the compensation, which we will talk about, but more so just guys like Micah Parsons who are in the prime of their career. When you are being mentioned with Reggie White as the only other player with at least a dozen sacks in each of your first 4 years, these guys do not come on the market very often. On top of that, the Cowboys already paid $60 million to Dak Prescott. They paid a ton of money to CeeDee Lamb. And so to not pay Micah Parsons, who is an anchor of your defense, yeah, that raises a few question marks. And the press conference that Jerry Jones did after the trade did not really help either.
Oh, I don't think there's any question.
But ultimately, the trade got done, and it was for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. And let me just get this out of the way real quick. I love Kenny Clark. I have a Kenny Clark signed jersey. He's one of the first jerseys that I ever bought. Kenny Clark, not only just as a player, but also as a person within the Packers community, has been a stand-up human being. I am greatly going to miss him and definitely look forward to him coming back and being in the Packers Hall of Fame. And even just for a locker room presence, he will be missed. You saw a bunch of guys, while they were definitely hyped for Micah Parsons to be on the roster, we're talking about Kenny Clark and how much his presence is going to be missed. Hell, even Micah Parsons in his first press conference mentioned Kenny Clark. And so the Dallas Cowboys are definitely getting a great locker room presence. And even though he did not have a great season last year and he's not on a great contract, I still think Kenny Clark is going to be plenty productive with the Dallas Cowboys. And to be completely honest with you, Kenny, depending on how he did this season, could have potentially been a cap casualty after this upcoming season. So from the Packers' perspective, in terms of the compensation that they gave up, yes, my heart will always miss Kenny Clark, but looking at this logically, I'm pretty darn happy. The fact that they gave up 2 first-round picks is kind of okay with me. They're likely going to be in the late 20s, if not 32 because they win the Super Bowl. But the Cowboys, unless something catastrophic happens, are not going to be getting early first-round picks. And so for the Packers to give away a late first-rounder for the next 2 years and Kenny Clark, a contract which already was not aging well, yeah, I'm pretty good with it.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
Because let's talk about the man of the hour himself, Micah Parsons. He's 26 years old. He'll be 27 next May, so literally in the prime of his career. He missed time for the first time in his career last year. He's had this back issue, but Goody even said in the press conference yesterday that he is not worried about it whatsoever. He passed a physical. He's had 52 and a half sacks in 4 years, 9 forced fumbles, and I mentioned that stat about Reggie White before. He's had at least a dozen sacks in his first 4 seasons. He's been an All-Pro for 3 seasons, and last season, even though he missed some time, had a 91.6 pass rush rating and a 65.5% run defense grade. And don't worry, we will talk about the run defense because I see there's some concern out there as well. Whether that's to be warranted, yeah, we'll talk about it. I think it's going to be just fine. But ultimately with Micah Parsons, he is playing like a generational player. Of course, we have to see the rest of his career. You know, we're not putting a Hall of Fame marker on him just yet. But ultimately, Micah Parsons is a game changer. He is a game wrecker. He's going to be the guy who is going to get doubled up just about every single game. Offenses have to account for him. And what this is going to be able to do in Jeff Hafley's defense, I cannot wait. Especially the fact that they didn't have to give up Rashawn Gary or Lucas Van Ness, who has had a very nice preseason, and the Packers are hoping hoping that he develops and takes that next step this upcoming year. And so when we talk about guys like Micah Parsons, of course, it's what he brings to the field, and you can see based off just his stats alone that he is a disruptor. I know that there's some folks that'll be like, oh, but he only has 1 sack in 4 playoff games. 1, he's on a different team now. And 2, I mean, hell, look at the game against the Packers in 2023 when the Packers annihilated them. They still had to game plan for Micah Parsons, and that's why Aaron Jones was featured so heavily, and they were able to just run it down their throat. 1, because they didn't have any middle linebackers, but 2, they were also using DBs to come and try and tackle Aaron Jones, and that just was not going to work. And so still the Packers had to scheme for Micah Parsons in that game so he wouldn't wreck things on the offensive side of the ball. And now the fact that one of the best defensive players in the NFL is on the Green Bay Packers, oh boy, the sky is the literal limit. And whether Lucas Van Ness is going to be moved on the inside, Goody talked about that potential yesterday because they just want to see him on the field, or Rashawn Gary might have a breakout year because Rashawn Gary is a very good pass rusher. He's just not Micah Parsons. But this is going to free Rashawn Gary up to get after the quarterback because if you're doubling Micah Parsons, there's still going to be other rushers available. And so immediately this is going to transform the Packers pass rush because Micah Parsons is that guy. But as I've said before, there are some critics about the Packers run defense, right? They talk about Micah Parsons, he's no good with run defense. I mentioned he had a 65.5 run defense grade. And if you look at Micah Parsons' play, like, he's not terrible in run defense whatsoever. I mean, if you want to look at Kenny Clark, the guy that we just traded, and again, I love you forever, Kenny, you look at 2024, he had a 57.1 run defense grade. So not making a huge difference there. And taking a look at the Packers' run defense as a whole, I don't think it's going to suffer a ton not having Kenny Clark. Yes, there's going to be guys that are going to have to step up, right? Devontae Wyatt is going to have himself a pretty darn big year. And if they move LVN inside, let's see if he can be a game changer on the line as well. But the Packers last year on defense, they had a pretty damn good defensive unit. They were 6th in points allowed per game. They were the 7th best run defense in the NFL. And Kenny Clark was not the anchor that he has been in previous years. 1, he wasn't really in on run defense a whole lot, and 2, he's coming off one of his worst seasons. And so ultimately with the Packers, I don't think the loss of Kenny Clark, again, in my heart, always, it's going to hurt, but on paper and on the field, I don't think that's going to make a huge difference within their run defense. And in terms of their pass D, they were ranked 13th, and having a good pass rush is going to make that secondary better, which is a question mark for the Packers. You look at their corner depth, and that is where there are some big time concerns, because if anybody gets hurt, they were able to get by without Jair Alexander last year and still be a top 15 secondary. And of course, that safety unit has been revolutionized with Xavier McKinney. Bullard's in there now. I'm very excited to see Evan Williams this season. And ultimately, I think the secondary is going to be okay, or at least it's going to look a lot better because now the Packers should be able to get after the quarterback even more. And on top of that, we have Edgerrin Cooper coming into his 2nd year, and he's already getting national acclaim. He had a 90.1 pass rush grade and a 78.6 run defense grade. So Edgerrin Cooper, there is a lot of hype. And the fact that Jeff Hafley has all these guys to put together different packages and schemes, I cannot wait to see how he is going to utilize Parsons and all these other guys on the field now that Parsons is going to be getting a lot of attention from opposing offenses. And so from a play perspective, I think the Packers defense is going to be significantly elevated by Micah Parsons, which I don't think that's really a hot take at this point. Like I said, the pass rush should be better. I think the run defense, which was already good last year, should continue to be good. And on top of that, the secondary is probably going to look a little better as well. But let's talk about the contract, because there is some big time money that is being thrown around for Micah Parsons. And of course, when he was signed, the big number was, oh man, he's getting paid $48 million a year. And after the contract details have actually come out, let's break this down, because this contract, while it's not necessarily team friendly, it's probably going to get renegotiated after the next 3 seasons. And honestly, it gives the Packers some leeway as they still nearly have $15 million in cap space this season alone. But taking a look at the breakdown of this contract, it's a $44 million signing bonus. So he's going to get that as soon as he signs the contract. That's going to hit for 2025. And he has a $1.17 million base salary, which is fully guaranteed. Overall, over the next 5 years, he has $120 million guaranteed, which is a lot of money. I mean, hell, Jordan Love just got a $55 million contract per year. And so here, Micah Parsons is getting paid close to what quarterbacks get paid, even though I think this contract's probably going to get broken by Aiden Hutchinson, Watson when he gets his new deal, as long as he comes back healthy. But how this averages out is about $42 million a year. It's $210 million spread out over the next 5 years. And after 2025, he gets a $38 million bonus in 2026 with a $2.387 million base salary. In 2027, he's getting $34.443 million with a $3.1 million base. And then after that, that's where I'm going to start to see some renegotiations go on, because his base salary is going to go up to $40.5 million in 2028 and $43.5 million in 2029. So what this means is basically for the next 3 years, this is probably going to be the window for the Green Bay Packers. And if you take a look at Jordan Love's new contract, which by the way was negotiated by the same agent as Micah Parsons, they are probably going to do some renegotiation after the 2026 season or the 2027 season. I know they have an out that's coming up within the next couple years, which they most likely will not utilize because hopefully he will be a Super Bowl champion at that point. But in terms of these major contracts, yes, you always have to worry about injury, but that's with any single player in the NFL. I mean, hell, look at Dak Prescott, who got paid $60 million and then he got hurt last year. That's unfortunately just part of the game. But if these guys are on the field, this gives the Packers a very clear 2 to 3 year window where they could be very aggressive, still in free agency, get some acquisitions, and have Micah freaking Parsons on the defense with their franchise quarterback in Jordan Love. And so ultimately, that is the Super Bowl window for the Green Bay Packers. And with all that being said, let's talk about expectations for week 1 and this upcoming season and what the short-term future looks like for the Packers after this major signing. So let's start off with week 1 against the Detroit Lions. Micah Parsons landed in Green Bay yesterday, and even though this deal has been going on for the past 4 or 5 days, he has not had a chance really to learn the playbook. He just got his iPad yesterday. And so I don't really expect you to see the full Micah Parsons experience week 1 against the Lions. However, he'll probably be on a snap count, or he'll just be in a pure rush format, or they'll just scheme him to be just a pure rusher and say, hey, do you see Jared Goff? Go and sack him. And hey, Micah Parsons is pretty good at that. And ultimately, right after that, the Packers have a 4-day turnaround because then they're playing the Commanders on Thursday Night Football, but then they at least get a little bit of a break, and I imagine they'll give Micah Parsons a little bit more time to get used to Jeff Hafley and that defensive scheme. But let's talk about this signing and what this means for the Packers and how the front office is also looking at this signing. This is the Green Bay Packers going all in. Now, Goody said yesterday at that press conference, he was like, hey, we're never just one player away, which is true. You need a multitude of players to make a winning team. And let me also be very clear, we have not seen the Green Bay Packers, the 2025 Green Bay Packers, play a single down of meaningful football yet. And so these are all just expectations. But having Micah Parsons, a guy that Matt LaFleur was beaming over yesterday during his presser, this opportunity and these kind of guys do not come around very often. They usually get their first big contract with the team that drafted them, right? That's the whole point of draft and develop. And the fact that he became available at his prime, you look at a guy like Trey Hendrickson, right? Who will likely be a free agent after this upcoming year with the Bengals. He's going to be in his 30s. Micah Parsons, he's 26 years old. You're going to see Hendrickson and he's potentially going to go to another team if the Bengals can't work something out. And he'll probably have 1 to 3 more productive years. Here, you're getting Micah Parsons literally at the best time possible. And now your Super Bowl window is wide open. The expectations that I had for the Packers this year was that they should be a solid team, probably a playoff team, and then from there, maybe they get lucky with their schedule or they're able to sneak away some wins and maybe they can go to the Super Bowl. I still think the Eagles are the cream of the crop in the NFC, but now adding Micah Parsons and solving a huge problem with your pass rush, which should make the entire defense better. It allows you to be more aggressive on offense. All these things coming together should be really freaking exciting for Packers fans. And I got to tell you, I am over the moon if my reaction, didn't relay that enough. Oh my God. What?
To the Packers of all teams.
Oh! Holy crap, man! Because to be a Packers fan right now, this is a historic trade. The Packers usually don't give out these kind of contracts to non-QBs. They usually don't trade away draft capital like Goody's talking about because they hold those very near and dear because they are a draft and develop team. However, what they've been able to do these past off seasons, not just getting Micah Parsons, but bringing in Xavier McKinney, bringing in Josh Jacobs, that has made that offense and defense so much better, looking at that safety unit and also our run game. And on top of that, drafting Matthew Golden in the first round, the first time in 23 years years, the Packers have picked a receiver in the first round. Yeah, the Packers are gearing up for a run. They believe that Jordan Love is their guy. That's why they gave him that major contract and are paying him $55 million a year. And Micah Parsons has proven over the first 4 years of his career that he is definitely that guy. So if these guys are able to stay healthy, this team is a Super Bowl contender. And I am very, very excited to see that. And the fact that the Packers still for the next couple years have some cap flexibility because Russ Ball is a genius, that allows the Packers to still make some acquisitions where they need, whether it's going to be in the secondary or potentially on the offensive line. And ultimately, I think this is the Packers' best shot to go and win a Super Bowl since they had Aaron Rodgers in 2020 and in 2021. And so ultimately, we're going to need to see guys like Jordan Love just be the most consistent version of himself. But this even gives him more leeway because if that defense is that freaking good, and they were already pretty damn good last year, this is going to give them the flexibility and also the lenience if that offense is a little bit slow out of the gate. I know we're dealing with some injuries at wide receiver. Marshawn Lloyd still hasn't seen the field, but this acquisition is going to make the Green Bay Packers a pretty damn good football team, and they should be one of the favorites in the NFC. Again, we have to see some meaningful football. It's going to be a little while till we see Micah Parsons be Micah Parsons on the field. Maybe it'll be just in time for that Week 4 game Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. But yeah, these are really damn exciting times as a Green Bay Packer fan, and I cannot wait to see how this season unfolds. So Packers fans, buckle up, enjoy the ride, because things are about to get crazy. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know, find me at TomGrossiComedy.com. A big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.